You're right, people. Welcome to the channel. Today we are talking about the murder of Henry Nowak, a case that should disturb anyone who still believes in equal treatment under the law. I'm going to go through the facts first because some of the details in this case are not just tragic, they raise serious concerns about the direction this country is travelling. Henry Nowak was an 18-year-old student at the University of Southampton. He was walking home from an evening out with friends on Belmont Road on December 3rd, 2025. Public reporting confirms Henry suffered a fatal wound to the chest and wounds to the back of his leg. Police initially described a puncture wound to the chest and 2 wounds to the back of the leg. Later, court reporting referred to multiple stab wounds. Vickrum Digwa has now been found guilty of murdering Henry Nowak. Prosecutors said Digwa used a Sikh kirpan with an 8-inch blade and later gave false accounts of racism and self-defence. His mother, Kiran Kaur, has also been found guilty of assisting an offender after prosecutors said she removed the knife from the scene and took it back to the family home, where it was later recovered by police. One of the most troubling details reported from the trial is that Henry Nowak was handcuffed by police officers after they arrived on the scene, even though he had already been stabbed multiple times. Reports say this followed an allegation of racial abuse made by Digwa. Henry is said to have told officers that he had been stabbed before collapsing. Hampshire police have apologised, and the police response is now subject to investigation, and those are the facts as reported. Now, here's where I stand on it. The fact that Henry's integrity was called into question adds another layer of disgust to this case. And in my opinion, the veil has been lifted again. Because what this looks like to me is a hierarchy of priorities in the decision-making process of the police. If an allegation of racism is enough to warp their version of reality to the point where they are putting handcuffs on a dying man because of spoken words, then that's a serious problem. And yes, I understand the police sometimes have to make rapid decisions in high-stress situations, but that does not explain this. Because if what has been reported is correct, then it's unforgivable. It reportedly took officers around 3 minutes to attend to Henry, despite him saying he had been stabbed. 3 minutes. When a young man is bleeding, wounded, and telling you he's been stabbed, every second counts. You'd think the look on Henry's face should have told them something. His body language must have shown signs of distress. He'd been stabbed multiple times at that point. He had reportedly climbed over a bin and a fence, trying to escape, leaving a trail of blood behind him. And even then, Henry still managed to explain to the police verbally what had happened to him, and was ignored. Based on what had been reported, we don't need Sherlock Holmes to work out what was going on. Use a small amount of imagination, and it quickly becomes a scene out of a horror film. I can't stop wondering if Henry was holding his chest when they pulled his hands away to cuff him. I think about the confusion he must have felt in his final moments, on top of everything else he suffered that night. And yes, it makes me angry. It should make people angry. So I hope there is a public outcry over this. I hope the full independent investigation into the police officers who failed Henry is closely followed. And if misconduct is proven, they must face justice. But I suspect we all know how this usually goes. Rinse and repeat. The officers will be protected, maybe a slap on the wrist, and that'll be that. No examples will be made and nothing will be learned. And again, that's just unacceptable. Personally, I would like to know the ethnicity and gender of the officers involved. Some people will say, what difference does that make? But anyone paying attention knows exactly why it matters. The public has a right to know the full picture. I want as much information as possible. Because if the victim was black and only white officers were involved, we all know the racial makeup of those officers would be front and centre of the conversation, just like it was with George Floyd. So how about we keep the same energy for this case? We should not let this fade away without pushback for Henry, because what happened to him could happen to anyone, and especially to us natives of this land who are increasingly disadvantaged when it comes to police priorities. Because when it comes to the practical application of the Equality Act, the police will always prioritise race relations and community tensions over the well-being of a native Brit. We have seen enough examples of this to know how it works, and that sends a clear signal to every officer. There is indeed a hierarchy of priorities, and if they want to progress, and if they want to survive inside the belly of the beast, they better get with the programme. That's not blind justice. That's justice with one eye open, and that is not justice at all. Right, let's get to the part where normies act like they don't know what's happening. Because we all know once a racial allegation has been made, rationality quietly exits the room. People start calculating. People stop seeing what is in front of them and start thinking about what could happen to them. It's like the double slit experiment. Once that magic spell is cast, their particles start acting strangely. Once that word is invoked, people start behaving differently because they realise the system is watching them. So the idea that Manchurian candidate police officers were activated the moment a racial allegation was made does not seem too far-fetched to me. That is exactly the sort of behaviour you'd expect after years of DEI indoctrination. One thing's for sure, the rot goes much deeper than the individual actions of the officers involved. Because if a dying young man can be handcuffed after being stabbed while the system scrambles to process an allegation against him, then something has gone badly wrong. And people can dress that up however they like, but ordinary people can see what it is. Right. Thanks for listening, people. And remember, stay safe, stay sharp. This is the White Wolf.